Good morning and welcome to a sunny but windy Brands Hatch. 34 cars here to play for the third race of the Blancpain GT Series, the second round of the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup. And John, we've had firecracker races at Misano and then the endurance round at Monza, and a totally different circuit for them to go and play on, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit.
Well, some might call it motor racing Valhalla, because it is old school, it is narrow, it is unforgiving, and it is wonderful, not just to drive on, but to race on. But track temperatures and ambience, that's going to catch a few out. The unwary, the silver and bronze drivers who are out on track right now, need to remember a few laps, get the temperatures up, the pressures up, and then you can start to really enjoy the flow of this wonderful Grand Prix Brands Hatch circuit.
And it is a track that has considerable flow, John, but it has the gradient that makes for great circuits. But as you pointed out at the very outset, it is narrow. So the drivers out there, the silver and bronze drivers, the first half hour of this 1 hour session, 3.915 kilometres, packed with fun. And John, your memories from racing at this circuit must just go on and on.
Well, I mean, the first thing that you have to contend with is Paddock Hill Bend. When you get to the top of Paddock Hill Bend, you think you're looking off the top of the Eiger. It just falls away from you. And there we see the cars going down. The camera actually really flattens that out. It is a very steep decline. Probably the most famous, or some would say infamous, corner on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, amongst many really great corners on a circuit that, you know, goes back to, well, the Grand Prix circuit, I think, was introduced in the middle 60s. Previously, it was just what we now call the Brands Indy circuit. But you said, Bruce, that's right, it's the topology of the circuit. The ups, the downs, coming out of Surtees now, you drop downhill into the bottom. There you can see the access bridge that takes you to the inside of the circuit. Then the climb up into Hawthorne's Bend. In ground effect days, way back in the dark ages of the early 80s, it is rumoured that some drivers never lifted for Hawthorne's. They were the brave, I have to say. Believe me, it was about 170 miles an hour, and well, I didn't take it flat, but others apparently in qualifying may have done so.
Well, when I was seeing down towards the tail of the lap, we saw Dingledale up to Sheen Curve, then through Stirling's, then he starts sweeping back into the bowl, as we call it, the kidney-shaped original circuit. Here we come down to Clearways and Clark Curve. But again, you're very seldom in a straight line. There's always the track dropping away one direction or another. If
I had to say what's my favourite corner, it probably would be Clearways, because you don't really see the apex, as is the case in many of the corners, until you actually arrive upon it, so you have to anticipate it. But you would turn the car, get it to rotate, and then there's quite a sharp dip, so the car gets a little bit light on its four wheels and tyres, and you have to be sure that the car, when it settles again, is pointing in the right direction. It's a quick corner, and the quicker you take it, the more satisfaction you receive out of it.
But you have very much the divide of the circuit. You've got the part in the bowl where we can see all of that from our commentary position. Then you go back into the woods, and it must seem so much narrower. The trees come in towards the edge of the track. The track's no narrower, but it just must feel it.
Well, actually, I mean, I equate the Grand Prix loop to a bit like driving around some of the country lanes in Kent, because we're in the county of Kent right now. And if you're on your own on the racetrack, it's sort of, well, where is everybody? Because not many fans get out to that part of the circuit. The trees are very close to the edge of the circuit. We see just coming down through Dingledale. That, again, doesn't give you the true impression, because now the trees are just about in full leaf, and they're almost like a canopy overhanging the racetrack. And of course, sometimes you get sap falling off the trees. Little things like that can just make those little differences.
Well, glad we're focusing on number 17, because he's just been knocked off. That's Stuart Leonard, top of the charts, but now Lewis Williamson in the 42 Stracker Racing McLaren has gone to the top. 1 minute 28.897 seconds. I'm sure that will be improved upon by 17. So it is. So Leonard back to the top. As John said, we've got the sun shining. It's very gusty. Obviously, you won't feel that if you're on the Grand Prix part of the circuit, but the track temperature is still 14 degrees. So these drivers have been very cautious, because this is a track that makes you want to go out and really attack, because it's just such an enticing place to come and play.
Well, I know that from drivers who are coming here for the first time, who have maybe been brought up on racetracks which have got wide open spaces, which is what most, let's call them grade 1 or many grade 2 circuits around the world. FIA sanction these circuits, their homologation. Brands Hatch is a grade 2 circuit, but as I mentioned earlier, it is properly old school, and thank goodness for it, because, you know, if you're a racing driver, your heart and your passion wants challenges. You don't want areas where you can run off almost into the next city before you ever hit anything. You make a mistake here, there's a penalty for it. Now, the penalty, we hope, would not be a severe penalty, but it will mean that it focuses your attention on staying on the racetrack.
Well, just as you were saying that, John, I happened to look away from the screen and out the window, and I saw a driver going off the track, but only very briefly. And he's fastest of all at the moment. It's number 27, Orange 1 Team Lazarus Lamborghini, Fabrizio Cristani. It was just at the exit of Graham Hill Bend, just got on the dirt. He won't want to do that again. In fact, one of the McLarens is just running at a similar angle. But, John, you're about to jump in.
Well, I was just going to say, the exit of Graham Hill Bend, Jonathan Palmer, who, through Motorsport Vision, his company, they have got sensors on that runoff area at Graham Hill Bend, and certainly in the events that he's promoting, as opposed to the SRO Blancpain sprint event here this weekend, certainly those sensors are active, and I would imagine they will be active as well. So any drivers that are seen to be abusing the exit of Graham Hill Bend will get a slap. It'll only be in the wrist, not like the good old days of corporal punishment, which probably you and I, Bruce, are familiar with.
I've tried to put those behind me, John. So, looking at the Rinaldi Racing, that's the 333 Ferrari. Alexander Matchell and Daniel Kalvitz. They've been going increasingly well this season, but so far they're down at the tail end of the top 20. Fastest lap at the moment, the number 5 Audi Dries Van Tor, won in 26.6, just being beaten again. Lewis Williamson. We're seeing a few names cropping up increasingly at the top as they start to get 2, 3, 4 laps under their belts. But a great lap there by Lewis Williamson. But let's see what the 333 is going to do. Alexander Matchell at the wheel, coming around to complete another lap. He's way down near the bottom, but I'm sure there'll be an improvement on its way. May I say, we get to the second and third rounds of the Blancpain GT Series, and the cars, their liveries starting to evolve. That's certainly looking very different from the way it came racing at Misano. I noticed too the Attempto Racing Lamborghinis have gone from just plain blue to a much more opalescent, exciting race livery. So good to see that too along the way. So Alexander Matchell going around, out through Surtees, up over the rise again. The television does flatten it, but then it's a crest, and you have that big drop as you go down the old Derek Minter straight towards Hawthorns.
And I mean, again, that drop much more significant than you can see on camera. Then you got the incline up. You can't, again, Hawthorns, you can't see the apex. So it's about commitment. It's about belief in yourself. It's faith in your car to ensure that when you make that commitment, particularly when you get into qualifying, when you're going to be at the very limit of the car, the tyres, your own ability, that you precisely place the car, because if you get it wrong there, it's going to be a high-speed trip, certainly down the grass on the outside of the corner, and the barriers and the tyre wall is not that far away.
I was just about to say, see Alexander Matchell staying very much within the circuit, but the McLaren right behind him, which could well be Lewis Williamson, out over the curb, slightly beyond. So this is a cautious lap, and maybe that's why Matchell is down in 19th place. I'm sure we'll see an improvement in position. Well, he suddenly vaults up to 15th place, but Lewis Williamson, another quick lap, but still just behind Dries Van Tor. Van Tor fastest in number 5 Audi. Number 3 Audi, haven't seen so much of that as yet, and that's got Peter Schotthorst on board. The Dutch racer, they're down just let me see, in 11th position. So time's changing left, right and centre. Team WRT cars all have the base grey livery, and then we have to identify them according to the colour of their bonnets and the stripe up over the roof. So blue over the top means it's the number 3, green over the top, number 2, black over the top, number 1, red, the number 5, and yellow, the number 17. You remembered all those, John?
I did indeed, and it's the number 5 car that currently is quickest of everybody so far. 125.6, Dries Van Tor. Dries Van Tor, of course, raced last year when his brother was also maybe the preeminent driver within the WRT Audi squad. It's hard to believe that Dries has still been classified as a silver driver, but of course it relates to success. We see Ferrari, and that's coming down out of paddock just before Graham Hill Bend, so probably rode the curb on the exit and coolish tyres, and that's what often happens. So driver looks like he's about to abandon the car.
Front of the car looks a little detached. It's the little very front panel. So that was 4th fastest. That's Michel Broncheski, last year's Pro-Am champion, but not a Pro-Am champion's performance just there. But as you said, John, it was cool when they went out. How many laps had that one done before it went off? Got 6 on the board, so there should have been some heat on the tyre.
He was on the 7th lap, so he was, as you point out, he was the first of the Pro-Am drivers. Many of these silver drivers are not AMs. Dries Van Tor is as pro as you can get, whereas Michael Broniszewski he was an AM, became a Pro-Am, and he's in that category right now.
Yeah, very much on the cusp. So Number 3 still going around that drop down outside the top 10. Peter Schotthorst, not surprised. Red flag out. Nice sunny conditions, but sadly with the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari parked halfway down the hill, just past halfway down the hill from Druids on the way down to Graham Hill Bend. With its nose at the edge of the circuit, its tail towards the tyre wall that it clouted. You can see the marshals just trying to see what they can do to, well, they've got the driver away. Might have a little bit of wall repair there. Shouldn't be anything too serious, so the bulk of the cars will have seen that red flag just sweeping through Clearways into Clark Curve, and then they should turn into the pit lane, and they do, so the driver's observing all the flags.
Yes, of course, the clock continuing to count down, so time lost for the go of the bronze and silver drivers is time they'll never make back up again. So hopefully the marshals around the racetrack will be able to clear the Ferrari, and if there is any damage to a tower wall, it's just difficult to see from our commentary position whether that is the case or not. But the car certainly, actually, when the car is just off the track, it's almost as if there's a slight dip from the track down. So getting the momentum back up to get back on track would have probably resulted in more wheel spin than anything else.
Yeah, it'd be frustrating. I think the front end is literally that nose panel is loose, and that could come back to the pits. Could even take at this point a shortcut back round to the pits. But the red flag has flown. We had 12 minutes completed. It's a 1 hour session. The first half hour for the bronze and silver drivers only, and 10 past 10 the top runners can come out and play as well. But I think quite a few of the drivers have got good laps. Let's just run down the time order as it is at the moment. The fastest car at the moment, the number 5 Audi, Dries van Tor, 1 minute 25.602. Then 98, one of the row racing BMW's second fastest, Jesse Krohn, and a series of quick laps for Lewis Williamson in the 42 McLaren. They're all very close indeed. 3-4 tenths between them. Then Michał Broniczewski in the Kessel Racing Ferrari, the driver that has brought out this red flag, is 4th fastest. And pleased to report a rescue vehicle, a flatbed truck, is just approaching his car now. So this should be quite a quick tidy up, hopefully, John.
Yeah, I mean, just getting the car removed is one part of the operation. Whether he did clobber anything on the the right-hand side of the racetrack coming down into Graham Hill Bend, or whether it was on the left side. Normally what happens, people come out of Druids and they smack it on the left-hand side, then they shoot across and get the double kiss on the right-hand side. But I don't think we probably had that moment actually on camera, so we just have to wait for the circuit to be cleared.
I see too, John, on the timing screens, one of the Audis, the number 3, a car with Peter Schotthorst on board, out and back at T7, which I reckon is
Sterling's
or
no, maybe
Sheen Curve. It's a bit further out.
Sheen Curve. Sheen Curve used to be the old Dingledell corner. Again, I mean, virtually, as I mentioned, every corner on the circuit has got a blind apex.
Well, at that point, you come out of the dell, you're coming up, and you see trees, and then you're committed, and then you get to see where you're going.
I had one of those life-changing moments back there in 1985 when a young Brazilian driver called Ayrton Senna was doing a qualifying lap in his Lotus, and I pulled out of the way and he came through, and it was something I had never seen in all the years I'd been involved in motor racing. What Senna did with that Lotus, he seemed to have 3 hands, 3 feet, none of the pedal gear changes. You know, it was pure manual racing car, but he was doing things that no other racing driver, to my knowledge to that time, was doing, and he just had the car dancing on the head of a pin. And it was over in the blink of an eye, I mean, maybe 2 or 3 seconds from in my mirror to being out of vision. And it was, wow. If that's the future, my days are numbered, I tell you.
But then again, that was Ayrton, but that was also the essence of this Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch. So technical, particularly around the back part of the circuit, and you have to be hyper-committed. Pleased to see the rescue crews are hyper-committed because they've got the truck in position now. They're just trying to. I think there is a slight dip on the grass where the Ferrari is sitting. They can't quite. They try not to damage it as they get the truck level to load it up. But down in the pit lane, people working away, they'll have gained a bit of experience. Now here's one of the cars they need to gain a lot of experience. That's the Lamborghini from Reiter Engineering of Marco Helister-Kangas and Caitlin Wood. They stepped up from racing in the European GT4 Series, which is supporting us again this weekend, the Northern Cup at Brands Hatch. Packed agenda. Tomorrow we've got the 2 Blancpain Sprint Cup races, the qualifying race and the main race, an hour each. We've also got 2 one-hour races for the GT4, so plenty to be going on. And for a lot of the drivers, particularly those who raced the KTM Crossbows last year, they look to this pair as their standard bearers because they've been promoted to come and play with the big boys and girls, and Caitlin Wood and Marco Helister-Kangas. I quite like saying that name.
You almost want to stop in the middle for a drink, don't you?
In fact, I think I have. As you can see, they're driving a Gallardo, not Huracan, so maybe not quite at the same level, but the experience they can gain.
Correct.
That's the key.
It's all about a young pairing coming in. They are not expecting to challenge for overall victory. What they want to do is just develop, and of course, driving one of these cars, they're quite a lot different from a KTM Crossbow. Much heavier, much more horsepower. So it's a progress, and you have to learn to walk before you can run. And GT cars now, certainly at the level of GT3 in the Sprint and Endurance Series, the sophistication of these cars has changed so quickly over the last 4 or 5 years. So the Gallardo is what would be 2015's technology. 16 onwards, the Huracan came in, and the Huracan, as we saw in the endurance round at Monza, a very effective piece of kit. Mirko Bortolotti amongst them, winning that race almost comfortably.
Yeah, they seem to get it all right at that first pit stop. No, they were in the mix, so they got a faster first pit stop, came out from there. But again, that was Monza, that was the endurance. Now we're in the much more quick-fire 1 hour racing Sprint Cup Series. Still trying to get the Kessel Racing Ferrari off the grass. They've now got a crane in position to bring it down. So down in the pit lane, super busy, looking at the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Alexander Matchell went out in that. He ended up in 17th when the red flag was flown. The clock still ticking away, 43 minutes until the end of the hour, the 1 hour of the session. And at the half-hour mark, providing we're clear on the track, the pro drivers, the top-level drivers, will be able to come out and have a go. But really, on the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, it's about getting your less experienced drivers comfortable with the mix.
Yes, you've just got to allow those drivers to, some of them, or maybe a large percentage of them, will have never visited or raced Brands before. And it's just under 2.6 miles round, 2.5 something. It is a challenge. I mean, people are sort of sucked into believing that motor racing, you watch it on television, you play it on your panel games at home. The reality is, when you come somewhere like Brands Hatch, it's almost as if you're going to our version, a mini version of the Nordschleife or the Nürburgring. If you just scale Brands Hatch up, multiply it by, well, let's call it by 6 at least, you'd have more or less the length of the Nürburgring lap, and that's what you're getting. 6 laps here is the equivalent to 1 lap at the Nürburgring.
But from our commentary position, we get to see them 6 times more, so it's not a bad deal. The 55 Ferrari, that's from Spirit of Race, Phil Quaife and Lorenzo Caze. Victory last time here at Brands Hatch. This is the 4th visit for the Blancpain Sprint Cup to Brands Hatch. Last time the winners were Enzo Ida and Christopher Mies, and obviously they did fairly well in the championship last year, with Enzo coming away with the title. They'll be hoping for great things, but for Phil Quaife, great to have him in this championship. We see him in lots of endurance racing series, and AF G. It's very old-fashioned writing on the side, isn't it? G. Collins and Son.
Yes, it is. It's a very, I would say, British. It's not even actually the scroll isn't particularly British, but it's as you would imagine over maybe an ironmonger's premises, because it would be very much about the name of the owner above the door, and it could be written in that kind of script.
Good to see people sitting around the circuit. We've got quite a lot of people coming in already this morning, quite a lot of car clubs coming in along the side of the circuit. They're still trying to get that Ferrari away.
It's not just the car. Well, part of it is getting the car, but also there is work going on the tyre barrier. You can see the tyre wall has been partially penetrated. Why are they having a difficulty in retrieving, or maybe they're not particularly worried about, because the work on the racetrack is taking priority, but of course the team will want that car back as quickly as possible. So the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari sitting there, we don't know if there is suspension damage or bodywork damage, or there may not be any significant damage, but with the amount of effort and time that's going into replacing the tyre barrier on the run out of Druids, indicates that maybe the Ferrari has got something. That could be the reason why we don't see it already either being pulled away or being hoisted up onto the various removal vehicles that are. There's 2 of them down there. A third one which has actually got equipment to repair that tyre wall which has been damaged. We've now got an official car pulling up as well, so maybe a query as to what is the problem. We've got now just under 40 minutes of this session remaining, and we're counting down. Loros Hazemans father raced Toine, but Loros's grandfather raced at Le Mans, apparently in the middle 50s, in a 550 Porsche Spider.
Bet he wishes he still had that.
I bet I would like to have it. So there's a legacy in the Hazelmans family. Then Twan, of course, one of the most famous drivers initially in touring cars. He used to drive for Abarth way back in the early 60s, then transferred into Alfa Romeos and then into Porsches. And I mean, one of the brightest people. Some might say unlikely, but exceptionally bright guy.
Right.
Great deal maker.
Right, well, that's why you can get 3 generations of a family going racing. You can't do that without deals and charm and that thing called talent as well. So great to have Loris on board. A lot of the teams frustrating down in the pit lane, want to get out on the track. The next new estimated restart time has just been moved back 5 minutes to 10:05. So for Philippe Salicada and the other gang down the pit lane, the sun is now starting to swing round over them, but they want to go and see it as they go out around the circuit. And now it looks as though the Ferrari is about to be. They've moved the truck to maybe try and lift it up and put it onto the back, but it's a lot of repositioning down there, John. So slight frustration, but conditions on the circuit are great, so that's why it's frustrating. The drivers want to get out there.
Actually, the car is at 90 degrees to the truck, which you can see the crane on the back of that truck to sort of left of picture. And in the meantime, tire bales are being shuffled around, so we're still waiting to get underway.
Now, I said the Tempter racing cars look much better this weekend. Look, you can see the flat blue livery has been replaced by a metallic, almost glow in the dark livery. That's the number 67 crew. That's Adrian Zoud and Max van Splunteren.
Certainly, I mean, it is spectacular, but the previous colour scheme, if you go out to Japan in particular, where Lamborghinis are massively popular, they love those flat, not whether it's blue or green or a sort of a tanny colour or black. You want to be individual. You obviously buying a Lamborghini Huracan, you're not your average kind of guy. It says something about you, and maybe if you want to carry that statement a bit further, you've got these unusual paint choice options. Whereas with that's a wrap on the car. That's a plastic wrap on it. I mean, it is. Put the sunglasses on before you look at it.
Absolutely so. Third rescue truck is now going round to, maybe it's got slightly different equipment, going around to try and pick up Michel Bronicheschi's fallen Kessel Racing Ferrari. Not a great deal of damage. Wonderful shots at the moment. The Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, still a fabled stretch of circuit.
Yeah, I mean, Stirling's Bend, that was the corner we were just looking at. I've got rather mixed memories of that particular corner. And it again has got a lot more runoff. You can see the gravel bed as we look at Lewis Williamson, who's gone.
He was he's third fastest.
Yes, he's third.
He was always there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Worth pointing out, we've got several driver changes this weekend, and his regular teammate Nick Leventis is injured. So David Fuminelli has come in. The 25-year-old Italian racer has come to take over. The 17 Audi, Robin Frientz wasn't at Misano. He was competing elsewhere, but Jamie Green took his place. But Robin is back, and Antonio Felix da Costa has replaced Tom Blomqvist alongside Philip Eng in the 99 Row Racing BMW. Those are the 3 driver changes for this weekend in our packed field of cars. 34 entries.
Yeah, I'll be looking to see how Antonio Felix da Costa. I mean, obviously a very, very talented Portuguese driver. Again, one of that group of Blomqvist and Rosenqvist who dominated Formula 3 over the previous 2 or 3 seasons. And then, where do I go? What's open to me? Well, the problem is the higher echelons in single-seater racing, very difficult these days to get into. But there's a wonderful opportunity with GT3 racing, the Blancpain Championship Sprint and Endurance in particular, offering up great racing. And if you are in the position to be a paid driver as opposed to somebody who is adding to a budget to a team, it's not a bad way to make a living.
And also it works the other way too. For the series, it's great to have our drivers who race in the Blancpain series competing in things like Formula E, so you can see how they stack up against others on the global scene.
The only, it's not a negative, but one of the transitions that's occurring is that with younger drivers coming in, those that are single-seater focused, and if you look at the entries in years gone by, there were always a number of AM partnerships, and they're beginning to slightly diminish because they're not finding it so much fun being dive bombed by these little hot rods, in a powerful GT car. Well, there's a young guy who one day himself might be a hot rod or
he's getting
having the time of his life. And it can't be that cold outside, Bruce. He's only in a T-shirt and shorts.
when you're powered by fever, you've got a day on your bike, day out with your parents, fantastic, and hope to have a great time. One of the cars we just saw down in the pit, certainly one of the most extravagant liveries, is the Singer livery Kessel Racing TP12 Ferrari of Bitty Birrock Bamdi and Carlo Van Dam. They've come and joined the championship this year as the Blancpain Series continue to grow. Temperature starting to come through the commentary box window is increasing. Certainly the sun is warming the circuit. That number 11 Kessel, we've got to think, 10 past 10, open session to all drivers as per the timetable, but for the bronze and silver drivers, they've lost 12, 15 minutes of running time, and that won't be coming back.
Over a third of their session. And the wise thing is to, instead of opening the circuit for 1 minute to bronze and silver, they're just saying the track is open to all. So we got just over 30 minutes.
What we had was 20 cars going out in that first half-hour session, and we'll have the full 34. So suddenly the track is going to become very, very busy indeed. ACA ASP, they're making an increasing dent on this championship. That's the 87 Mercedes AMG. Jean-Luc Bobelic and Jules Gounon. Jules, son of Jean-Marc.
Jean-Marc.
Such an exciting driver in Formula 3000 and then in sports cars when he came across, and just a great entertaining fellow.
Flamboyant in historic racing.
Yeah.
You have watched him down
at Goodwood many a time.
At historic motorsport events.
Have I? Okay, good.
Yes, wherever they may have held.
Yes.
And Jean-Marc Gounon, and I get a DBR1 Aston Martin, which is, I can assure our audience, is one of the greatest drivers' racing cars. Sterling Moss used to love it. Tony Brooks loved it because it's got that magical component called chassis balance. There wasn't aerodynamics in those days. You might as well race with a brick. But the Aston Martin was just one of those brilliant chassis that worked on all kinds of circuits. Its contemporary was the D-Type Jaguar, which is fundamentally, if you look at the Ferrari, front end damage, quite a lot of it indeed. Going back to the D-Type Jaguar, which was essentially a car that was designed to run at one racetrack once a year, which is, of course, an event in France for 24 hours, Le Mans. So the DBR1 Aston Martin, just a totally fantastic chassis.
But again, he's one of those drivers that crosses over to historic racing. He's so powered by passion for his racing.
Well, we're talking about Jean-Marc.
Jean-Marc Gounon.
We've got back to him now, yes.
Yeah, no, but just he's one of those drivers who comes across and actually appreciates the history and really wants to get into how to drive the cars quickly, rather than just show up and drive. He wants to get it right.
But sometimes when I watch him, and I have seen these events, I do watch them on television occasionally when they're broadcast, I just wonder, some of these cars are worth 8 figures. I'm talking about sterling, not in dollars or euros. What are those funny things from Europe? And they're driving everything off the car. I mean, the car's, the energy going into it, sliding it, power slides, then the quick transition from left to right. Unbelievable.
Well, delighted to see that Ferrari is now on track, on the truck, and hopefully will be off the tracks soon. Now here we have Philippe Salicado. Let's go for a lap of the circuit, John. Very little visibility from the ISR Audi into the first turn down the corner and into the dip.
Probably down to 4th gear, then up to 5th gear, and then climb up into Druids, back into 3rd. And a variety of options. People choose to run the curb, stay a bit later. It's the exit you have to be careful of. Then the run down into Graham Hill Bend. It's a frustrating corner because it's not really anything you can get your teeth into. Watch on the outside because that's where those sensors are. Then the short straight, we used to call it bottom straight, into what South Bank now is actually called Surtees after the late great John Surtees. Never was knighted. What a disgrace. Now on to what we call a straight, but it's got a dog leg. Then you can see how steep the decline is to the bottom, and then up there's a compression there. Then you uphill. Where's your apex? There it is there. To the very end of the corner. Run the car out to the outside. Coming down to Westfield, another corner is bumpy here. You'll notice the cars from the out. The camera's bouncing around. Then down into Dingledale Dip, up into Sheen Bend. Again, another apex that's masked until you get there. Short sprint up to Stirling's, quite heavily cambered on the inside. Run the curb on the outside. It's an aggressive curb. It can unstabilize the car. Cars have shot off left and right. Then coming down to what really is my favorite corner, just launch it in, turn the car, rotate it, and well, he's coming into the pits to complete a lap. But I mean, every corner is a gem in its own way.
And at the end of the lap, that was obviously recorded before the red flag, the session is underway. Perfect timing, John. And out, in fact, comes that Reiter Engineering Gallardo Lamborghini that we were mentioning with Caitlin Wood and Marco Hellis to Cangas. And now a whole stream of cars. We should have 33, not 34, because clearly the number 11 Ferrari, the Kessel Racing Ferrari that Michel Bronicheski got wrong on the exit of Druids and clipped the barriers. That will need some repair. But the Bentley's coming out to play. They didn't have any bronze or silver drivers in their lineup. Now we've got all the top guns, 33 cars coming out. This whole amazing array of marks that we have in the Blancpain GT Series. No wonder it's the strongest GT Series in the world.
Indeed, so 33 cars on 2.433 miles, 3.9 kilometres. All of a sudden it'll be, oh, I couldn't get a clear lap, or he held me up. So everybody has to understand they've got to work with one another, and if you're on an out lap, look in your mirror, make sure you're not impeding a car that's on a flying lap. Conversely, when you've done your lap, don't be selfish, get out of the way. Oh, I don't want to get dirt on the tyres. You have to work together, especially on this style of racetrack.
Now, this number 90 Mercedes from ACA ASP is one we definitely should watch. Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello very strong in that opening round. Came away in second place.
I tell you what, Raffaele Marciello is wow.
He's feisty.
He's a big, tall Italian guy. Look, you look at him and he's like some lanky student out of Bologna. But actually, he was a Ferrari young academy driver, and he was outstanding in that car. Even Dominic Baumann felt the old hip and shoulders as they went through turn 8 in the Mazzano circuit.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when someone crosses over from single-seaters, because he raced in Formula 3 and GP2, you think they might take a little while to get adjusted. He's not of that nature. Clearly, he thinks, I'm a racer, I race. That's what he does.
Clearly, and he certainly made a strong impression, I think, on all who watched him in the ACA Mercedes-Benz.
Well, isn't it great? We've got a camera on board their car.
Yeah.
So clearly they thought very hard about who's going to provide the action. Seen what Raffaele Marciello was like in that opening round at Misano, getting stuck in. Let's have a camera on board. Let's see how far around the lap we can go. Just past the point where Bronicheski got it wrong. Graham Hill Bend, never the corner it was. It used to be much more open, then it got tightened.
Runs the curve on the exit. That's what you're
the consequence.
No, I mean, at this phase or stage, probably nothing's going to be mentioned, but everybody will be aware that if you take advantage of Graham Hill Bend rather than Bottom Bend as it used to be called, then it will be something that could affect you. You have your time, delete it. If you do it in the race more than 3 times, potentially you could have a time added on, or even a drive-through penalty.
And just so you were saying that, John, one of the sister ACA ASP Mercedes did precisely that, ran fully over the curbs, the exit of Graham Hill Bend, but a very tidy lap coming up here. The target to beat is a slightly artificial target, 1 minute 25.602 set by Dries van Tor before the red flag came out in the opening half hour of the session, waiting for the first flying laps to be completed by these cars out of the pits, which will start to get some times being logged any moment now. But 2 green sectors, of course, that means he's improved on his outlap, but now he's got a slower car, I think, just in front of him as they sweep through clearways.
Yeah, he's going to be in the top 6, I suspect, just judging by the sector times. So he comes across start-finish line, and let's look and see where that car is. Well, it's all the way... Oh, hold on, it's bumped up now.
19th place.
19th place. Well, I was a bit optimistic with that. But I just look at some of the sector times. He was about half a second off in Sector 2. But I would not be surprised to see the top 20 when we finish qualifying on Saturday afternoon.
Yes, this afternoon.
With 20 cars covered by less than a second.
Yeah, absolutely expecting that.
Well,
that's the very corner we were talking about. That's Graham Hill Bend, exit of over the curbs. Do not do that again. Stephen Kane and Vincent Abril.
Yeah, Vincent Abril
at the wheel.
Yes.
Longer legs.
Yes. So just running wide on that Graham Hill Bend. Still, Dries van Thor's time stands from.
But he's about to improve on it because he's just set 2 purple sector times. He goes 1 minute 24.914. He's taken. What was that? 0.7 of a second on his previous best. Second fastest at the moment is the driver we looked at earlier, Loris Hazeman. So McLaren's looking pretty well suited to the circuit here at Brands Hatch.
Yep, and Loris Hazeman's young driver turned up this year at Mazzano, and again, 18 years of age, but a background in karting and some of the junior formulas, but with that sort of inherent gene pool that he's received from his grandfather and his father, so somebody who we will need to keep an eye on for the future.
Well, just looking to see how number 7 Bentley can go. Of course, it's improved position up to 15th place. The sister car just left the pits. So let's have a look. This is Graham Hill Bend. This is the track, and there's the bit beyond the track. So the number 7, we saw that from on board earlier with Vincent Abril.
The reason he ran wide is because he clipped the curb too aggressively in the inside, and that threw the car a little bit further out to the right than maybe Abril would have wanted. So we'll have to reset the on-board computer, the one in his brain anyway, and make sure he doesn't touch that curb, because that will throw you out maybe another 2 or 3 feet to the right.
In fact, as two of the HCP Mercedes get, one's rather blocking the other. It's the 84. Oh, sorry, it's the Audi tucked in behind.
Yes,
two
the
grey
Audi
cars.
behind, yeah.
That's the number 1 with the black bit over the top. But earlier we had the onboard lap with Philip Salacado, and he clipped the curb on the inside at Westfield, and that's not a corner you want to be being pushed towards the exit. Got it back together though.
This is the book, Frank Pereira, Mercedes, the car that just...
The car to beat.
Well, the car to beat, certainly, from Mazzano, just ran off and hid. So it's just on its initial laps, 1 lap Max Book behind the wheel. He's already achieved a 127.5. Let's see what this lap is. Maybe not massively quicker, but...
Top 10.
Well, he's 126.5. He had the Audi pushing him, so the Audi's backed off, probably it has gone into the pits, in fact. So it probably felt it was getting delayed. Yet again, it's the number 5 Audi of Dries van Voor, Sector 1, purple. Mirko Bortolotti, second quickest. He had Sector 3 quickest overall. So it's now Audi, Lamborghini, Mirko Bortolotti, who was in the winning car at the 3 hours of Monza a fortnight ago.
Yeah, we saw flashes of speed in the second half of last year from Mirko, and he seems to have the confidence, and that driver lineup is looking very strong indeed. Great to have Lamborghini right up at the front end.
If I had an option of who would I put into a car for a sprinter or a endurance event, I would certainly have Bortolotti as one of the drivers on my list. I think he is pretty impressive, and certainly in a Lamborghini, very much so.
Right, waiting for Mercedes to start to put in some quick times, because at the moment it's still Dries van Voor, 1 minute 24.357, going faster and faster. Mirko Bortolotti, Lamborghini second, and BMW with Jesse Krohn in third place. Then McLaren have to work our way down the order to find Mercedes at this point.
That time that we're seeing from Dries van Voor, sort of either it's a very fresh set of rubber left over from Mazzano, or it's a new set of rubber, because all of a sudden, while track conditions are improving with more cars on track, quicker the line begins to get cleaned up. But I suspect that the increase in lap time may be due to a fresher or new set of tyres.
Looking at Jules Simkowiak at the moment, he is the best placed Mercedes and down in 11th place overall. His best time, 1 minute 26.247. That's 1.9 seconds down. Yes, it might be new tyres, it might be fresh tyres. Dries van Voor half a second quicker than the rest. Maxi Book in the garage, he'll get his go in a while. So from Pereira at the wheel of the 84 Mercedes at the moment, but not in the top 10. Yeah, sorry, just up into 5th place, just made that improvement.
But that was Max Book in the garage, it appeared, and
yes.
So the timing and scoring, the transponder in the car needs to be changed over, because it's dropped down to 6th place, because Lewis Williamson has gone up into 5th place. And all of a sudden, we're now seeing what you'd expect when you get the pro drivers out. That lap times by the lap are beginning to tumble. There's the BMW, the Row Racing BMW, the 99 car, which is with Antonio Felix da Costa. Philippe Eng makes his way down, again just on the edge. The McLaren doing the same thing. If you can keep 2 wheels on the racetrack, you can get away with it. You get all 4 onto that area over the white line, that's when you're going to be then called to explain your actions. The attempt to racing Lamborghini also.
4th fastest, Marco Mapelli, just about to come on to that. So he's within, again, it's 1.2 seconds down to that incredible pace by Dries van Voor. But if that's down to a new set of tyres, well, good luck to them, but they might want those later.
I'm just looking at the Row Racing. For a minute I thought maybe one of the doors, maybe it was just the area behind the front of the...
Yeah, because if you look from the back, there's that gap.
Yeah, and that gap...
Look at the rear shot there, yeah, you can see it just in front of the number, but yes...
That's partly where the exhaust system... It is the most convoluted engine installation you'll ever see, because the engine is so low in the chassis, so the turbo and the exhaust from the turbos come out by the A pillar, just slightly lower than where the wing mirror is. I mean, an amazing engineering feat. And what BMW have done with the M6 to package this car as successfully as they've done is an exercise in the art of interpretation and engineering and success.
So this is quick fire practice, it's free practice, it counts but only to a certain extent. But it's all about the teams bedding themselves in. Looking at the 58 McLaren, the McLaren's been well placed that place. That's Alvaro Perez, 8th fastest at the moment. Of course, knows this circuit very well indeed from the days when he won the British Formula 3 Championship a dozen years or so ago. But since then has become very much McLaren's go-to man, both in Europe and particularly in the United States, where he does a lot of winning in the Pirelli World Challenge.
I think he's got the highest number of air miles of any racing driver, because if he's not racing in Europe, he's over to the States. If he's not in the States, he might be in the Middle East or Far East or
testing,
wherever,
racing.
doing everything. I mean, literally, I think his body doesn't know which continent he's on.
Well, we had a chat with him at Misano, and he looked pretty over-travelled even at that point in the season. Yeah. Hopefully it'll settle down, but it doesn't take long. Alvaro gets a smile on his face, but he did look quite haggard, I must say, in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, no, but it's you make all those transatlantic trips, you're coming back, and you're sort of, once you get into sort of, it's the equivalent, as he backs off just either to get track position, I think that's what he's looking to do. It's the equivalent of a runner getting into oxygen debt. You have to stop to recover, and I think for Alvaro, he just needs to have a weekend where he's not doing anything to give himself a chance mentally and physically to recover from all the activities that he's currently required to do by McLaren.
Do we have an improvement? No, staying very close to it, but there was a much slower lap. We saw him back off, bouncing over the curbs at the inside of Paddock Hill Bend, out over the curbing on the outside. Which driver hasn't been over the curbing on the outside at the bottom of the compression after Paddock? I mentioned the fact Mercedes hadn't really featured very much in the top 10, but the 84 Maxi Bouk, but we think it was teammate from Pereira at the wheel, according to the helmet that was still standing in the pit garage, 4th fastest at the moment. So it's the number 5 Audi, Dries van Tor. Christian Engelhardt has taken over the number 63 Lamborghini, and now 98, that's Marcus Paltela taking over that BMW that's 3rd fastest.
So I think we've seen the pros go out and do a 3 or a 4 lap run, back in, then they'll do a quick shift around. We've just got under 18 minutes of this session remaining, so you want to give both drivers minimum 5 flying laps, by which time, when you fulfill those obligations, there's not an awful lot of time left to do any further kind of, where do we want to go? Is the car, how is the balance of the car? How are your tyres? Have we got tyre temperature? Have we got everything working? And just, you've got a narrow window, and you can't get all the work complete.
No, and then it's so quick fire here at Brands Hatch. You come in after the session is over, 1 hour session divided, time lost already, and then you have a 1 hour session that starts 2.25 hours later. So for the crews, anything that needs fixing, they've got to be really, really focused in sorting the makeup of these cars. No increases. Oh, as I say that, suddenly we have number 84. Now listed as from Pereira. I think he stayed on board with, actually, maybe they just got it wrong. Maybe they flicked the things over. We definitely saw Maxi Bouk's helmet in the pits earlier.
Yes.
But that has now gone 3rd fastest. So it was 4th, the 84 Mercedes up to 3rd. Christian Engelhardt has taken over the 63 Lamborghini. The time was set by his teammate Mirko Bortolotti earlier, but Christian listed in the programs as Dutch, but I think that's a mistake because we know he's German.
And I assure you, what a happy guy he was at Monza.
He does happy very well.
He does happy. I tell you what, he could go, Holland's Got Talent with that degree of happiness. or Germany for that matter. But on-board shot from Christian Engelhardt, sliding the back of the Lambo, coming out of Graham Hill Bend, up through the gears, then on the brakes. This is one of the few places I always felt was an overtaking area on the Grand Prix circuit. If you can take that run up the inside, it compromises your corner, but you also compromise even greater the car that you're passing, so you can control the corner from the inside, but you need, again, to be fairly and squarely alongside before you can make it work.
Now, when we look at our timing screens, what we're not seeing a lot of is green on the screen, which means drivers improving their times. But for a lot of these drivers, they're on their out lap or just starting their flying lap, having taken over the car from their teammate. In the case of the 63 Lamborghini, it was Mirko Bortolotti set the 2nd fastest time of all in this session. Still 5/10 down on the ultimate pace set by Dries van Tor in the number 5 Audi, but now stuck in the middle of traffic. That won't help, but Christian Engelhardt starting to wind up to speed, but they know the clock is counting down, just over 1/4 of an hour remaining in this session, and position gained on the circuit at least to maybe go and do his driving where he wants to do it. Christian Engelhardt has got free and needs to make it work. Down the start-finish straight there we can see, in fact he just got past the Reiter Lamborghini Gallardo, the older car.
But in the process of overtaking some of the cars,
compromised 2 laps.
2 seconds down on the time that was set slightly earlier by Mirko Bortolotti. As we go back to Dries van Tor, had been the quickest car. That car now, looking to see where it is, but still, in fact, it is now still, but it's a change of driver. So Dries van Voor is out of the car, Marcel Fassler behind the wheel. Obviously, it's a bit like, the Sage and the Youth. Marcel Fassler in his, let's call it, late 30s.
No, he's just crested 40, I think, and amazingly, he's never raced here. I thought, when I saw that...
Nearly lost the back of the Audi coming through. You could just see suddenly it was beginning to teeter on the edge of the rear tire, got it into control, but you're saying, Bruce, is this the first time he's been here?
No, it's not the first time he's been here. He came in 20 minutes in a practice session, A1GP for Team Switzerland back in 2007. It's the first time at 40 he's got to race here, and he really, really can't wait.
Well, it's great to see everybody as enthusiastic about coming to Brands Hatch and enjoying, something which is, unfortunately, we're going to see less and less of circuits of this character. I like the proximity of the side of the racetrack and the barriers. I like it being narrow and challenging. I want to see the best drivers shine. I don't want to see some, I'll not say on air what I want to call them, but there are some drivers who are quick because if they make an error, it doesn't matter. I want to see the good guys being quick because they are the best drivers.
Also, from a TV point of view, the pictures just look brilliant. Have the trees around it and discernible backdrops as you go. At that point, I said there's no backdrop because we're seeing the tarmac, but then you have this high angle taken from right next to our commentary position, sweeping across to our left to the corner we can't quite see from our position, to Paddock Hill Bend, the corner that you cannot see until you're in it and on it, and then hopefully through it. But the 98 BMW trying to pick up the pace, fourth fastest at the moment, 1 minute 25.233. Marcus Paltler took that over from Jesse Crone, who set the time early on. Still waiting for some quick times at the top, but for a lot of the top teams, they're not really concerned about finding that extra half second right now.
No, again, it's an element of tyre conservation. So most of the pro cars will be going out on the best of the rest they would have had from Misano, and they will not really want to use a new tyre. They may have a little snifter of it. It'll be interesting to see if anybody does do that when they go back out on track at 5-1 for another 1 hour free practice session. And then at 4:25, quali begins, the 3 qualifying sessions, 15 minutes, and then that last 10 minute, it's going to be airy, scary stuff.
It certainly is. Qualifying where it gets narrowed down to a point. We start with 34 cars, we shed 17 and work our way down to find out who is the ultimate driver, the driving combination around Brands Hatch, and so critical to get pole here, to have the better line into Paddock Hill Bend on the opening lap. 34 cars around here will be just the most amazing sight on Sunday. Tomorrow, John, when we look down at the grid from our commentary position, it'll just be a wall of colour that even starts to curve away at the far end, because the straight here isn't straight for very long at all.
No, it's not. In fact, there's barely any part of the racetrack that's actually totally straight. Maybe a bit down into the bottom of Hawthorne Straight is the only part of the racetrack. Everything else is bending in one way or another.
Starting to get changes. We just had Norbert Siedler go 5th fastest in the 19 Lamborghini, but that's been moved to 6th because Jules Simkowiak has got the 85 Mercedes up into 3rd place. John, you want to jump in here? That was a quick lap. 1:25.027.
Yeah, Jules Simkowiak, who at one time was known as Wild Thing when he started in Blancpain GT Sprint and Endurance, but last year, particularly when he was co-driving with Bernd Schneider, has found stability in his driving, but also maintaining the speed. The Lamborghini, very, very aggressive, and he skips and jumps over the curb. That's the Grasser Racing.
Is that Norbert Siedler in 19?
Yes,
it is.
Yes,
He just went 5th. He fell back to 6th, but
he's wringing the neck of the car.
He certainly is. Let's keep the camera on this one. And again, when you see well, as you said at Sturdy's, you need to go out over the curbs. We've just had an improvement from, is it still Williamson in the car? We think it's probably his teammate because he's got David Fuminelli on board this weekend, unless they sent Fuminelli out early on and have problems. But let's see, is it going to be much of an improvement from the 19? Well, Norbert Siedler, good, his fastest opening sector, his fastest 3rd sector, but in fact he's lost position because we've had another improvement, which is Simkowiak and Williamson 3rd and 4th, and that's knocked Siedler down to 7th. But by gosh, he was pushing on very hard there. Yeah, but that lap, believe it or not, yes. 9/10 down on the very best.
Yeah, but also it was actually his best lap, but it just didn't change position, didn't give him any advantage. But he was wringing the neck of the car all around the racetrack. You might call it in another language, slightly overdriving it. Some drivers, that's how they express themselves. Stephen Kane now behind the wheel of the number 7 Bentley. Let's do a lap behind. The Ulsterman, Stephen Kane, has always been outstanding when he's been behind the wheel of the number 7 Bentley. Tends to hug the inside coming round Druids and gets well to the right to give himself the slightly better entry, not riding the curb. And the Bentley is one of those cars that actually does ride curbs probably better than others.
Now there's an Audi up ahead of him. I just spotted it's the number 1 Audi, Christopher Mies, last year's winner here. And hopefully it's far enough up the road ahead of him. It's about 1.5, 2 seconds ahead. Just see it going over the crest that won't interrupt this lap. And I loved your description of Stephen Kane at Misano. You described him as an ankle biter.
He reminds me of one of those gorgeous little animals called a Jack Russell. And he's just
gorgeous in the eyes of some.
Oh no, I think they're wonderful. But anyway, but he's got that ability to just when you need to grab something and shake it. That's what he does when he's behind the wheel of the Bentley.
Just looking on the screen, it's in fact the number 7 Bentley isn't even on our screen. It's not in the top 20, so times will have to start picking up for him. But he set his fastest middle sector. Let's see if that puts him up top. Now Jules Simkoviak, I just want to point out, has gone from 3rd to 2nd. He's just set the fastest middle sector of all. Hasn't completed his lap on the 85 Mercedes. But let's come back to the end of the lap, John, for the 7 Bentley crew.
So Stephen Kane comes across start-finish line. His clock stops at a 1:26.3. And that, I'm just going to see...
Not in the top 20.
There must be. 26.3.
No, 26.3, just outside. The fastest at 24.3.
Absolutely.
But in fact, the car ahead of him, Christopher Mies, did improve his position, but only to 16th, so they weren't the ultimate crew.
Interestingly, Simkoviak, who was fastest overall in the middle sector, maybe hit traffic on the final sector. He still remains second as lap 125.2, about half a second away from his current best time overall.
Looking at the 66, one of the 2 Attempter Racing Lamborghinis, this is now Giovanni Venturini, who's taken over. Got as high as 4th, but in fact that's now fallen down to 9th place overall. No improvements coming at the moment, but what he has is clear track ahead of him as he goes down Hawthorne Hill under the bridge.
And it was Giovanni Venturini who actually at Monza had a little misjudgment going into the first chicane and ran into the back of one of the WRT Audis and took both cars in fact out of that 3-hour event. Just, I don't know whether it was a driver error in total or maybe just some other factors we didn't really get to the bottom of it, but did significant damage to the front of his Lamborghini and even more significant damage to the rear of the Audi.
Well, I just was having a quick look at another Lamborghini, the number 19. Norbert Siedler just set a pink time, fastest of all in the middle sector, but he remains in 7th place overall. But this lap for Venturini not looking as though he's going to promote the number 66 higher than its current position now of 10th on the charts. 10th out of 34. We effectively have 33 because the number 11 Ferrari set a decent time early on but brought the red flag out, and that is still being repaired in the pits. So I look to my right, I can see 4 other cars in the pit lane, so still nearly 30 out on the track. Still a mark to beat, 1:24.357 seconds for Marcel Fessler, but that was set by his teammate Dries Van Tor very early on.
Number 1 Audi had been 10th. Now suddenly demoted down to 11th. The number 17 WRT car, Stuart Leonard, Robin Freehan's Robin behind the wheel, recovering from a knee injury he incurred doing some training. I think he was on a run or something, and he did damage to the ligaments, tendons in his knee, and he had to withdraw from the I think it was Mazzano. So he's back behind the wheel, fit we hope, and now got into the top 10. Christopher Mies down to 10th place. That was the car that won here last year. Mies and Enzoid, great balance of partnership, worked really, really well together.
Don't they just? All these shots almost make it look like a full-on race at the moment when you get these wonderful shots from Sterling's, the rear shots, seeing them come back to the stadium section, the Indy section of the circuit. The Rinaldi Racing Ferrari not in the top 20 at the moment, getting blocked a little bit by the Kaylee Wood, Marco Hedis de Cangas, Lamborghini Gallardo, and right behind is the number 1 Audi that needs to get past the pair of them as they go up to Druids. Coming down the hill out of Druids, 89, that's the ACA ASP Mercedes, Christophe Bourret and Jean-Philippe Belloc. A quick scan up and down the charts, not in the top 20. Again, clear section of track for some out back part of the circuit, but these are largely the Pro-Am drivers and the Am drivers we're looking at. And the fastest time still with the number 5 Audi. That did have a fair bit of traffic up ahead of it. 33rd fastest, i.e. second slowest. 89 entries. So Christophe Bourret, Jean-Philippe Belloc need to get a bit of a move on. You can see their relative position, the blue lights on the windscreen.
Just under 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes of the session remaining. And I would imagine that most people will continue to the flag with what they've got, i.e. the set of tyres they're on. They're not going to do anything different. They're just going to let the driver behind the wheel will get 3 laps approximately in before the flag comes out, and then go back and have a thought about it, back in the garage, back in the facilities, these very modern motorhomes and transporters, some of which combine. So a lot of some head scratching and, well, just comparing one driver's opinion or views with their teammates.
Talking of transporters, I walked along the back of the paddock here today, and it took me back to my early days as a school pupil, and then when I started as a journalist. But the difference now is the trucks are so large, there's almost no space behind the garage anymore. And you look at some of these trucks, absolutely beautiful with those levels that rise up. And so looking from here towards Surtees, we can see the corner, but certainly more high-rise, as these trucks have offices built in the top where they go for their debriefs, their lie down, their rub down, their massage, whatever. Certainly there will be a lot of discussion because it's so crucial to qualify well at Brands Hatch. John mentioned 20 seconds should probably cover the top 20 cars in 1 second.
Yes, I would imagine so. Just interesting to see the Ferrari clearly quicker on a lap, struggling to get by the Mercedes. Now puts himself squarely alongside coming into Westfield Bend. In effect, it wasn't pretty, but that's the best way to pass somebody in Westfield Bend. Make the dive down the inside, but be alongside, and then slow yourself and the other car down. You compromise the Mercedes, it's got nowhere to go, and you've got track position, and you can get away and clear off into the distance. 3.33 Ferrari, still not inside the top 20 in our timing and scoring currently, and probably this lap not likely to break into it either, principally because of the time spent behind. So Daniel Kilovitz, I'm assuming, is behind the wheel of it right now.
Yes, it was matched earlier. On car number 5, we're setting position 3, so that's the fastest car has maybe got some transponder problem. We don't have to worry about that. They set the mark 1 minute 24.357 seconds, and now we have the 85 Mercedes up to second fastest. Fabian Schiller, who so impressed us, he's taken over from Jules Simkowiak. Don't think we'll see the quick laps yet because Simkowiak had the lion's share. The 67 Lamborghini looking so much better in that livery this weekend. Adrian Zaug and Max van Splunteren. I think in the top 10 too. Looks fast, isn't going fast.
Just to go back to the 85 Mercedes, Fabian Schiller was again in Mazzano, a newcomer to the Blancpain Sprint GT Endurance Championships. Again, just a talent, just one of those.
A duck to water.
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
And it's always intriguing. John's pointed to a green time on screen. So Philippe Eng has started. Sorry, that's Christian Engelhardt. Has now started to wind up towards some quick times. Didn't lead to a faster lap overall. Still stays third, but that's such a strong pairing. Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt in the 63 GRT Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini. Under 2 minutes to go. The 67 car needs to get a move on. You can see on the screen it is 20-something position. And you talked about the curbs at Stirling on the exit being a bit vicious and violent, but they certainly gave a rodeo ride for the 67 Lamborghini. And
you need to be careful. If you let that right rear drop off the outside of the curb, you will unquestionably have a spin, because that will just, the whole car will just pivot around the nose. The pendulum effect will take over. So you just must never let that right rear wheel drop off the top of the curb.
Well, discussion time in the back of the garage. Is that Mirko Bortolotti? He's trying to pick it out in the... It is indeed Mirko Bortolotti. That's sort of the childhood watching those Greek silhouette theatres. Very exciting it was. We mentioned the 333 Ferrari needing to get a move on. It just broke into the top 20 and now it's just fallen. But number 19 out of the track, Norbert Siedler, has been pushing very hard, but he's doing a series of laps very close to his best. There has been traffic in the way. And suddenly, top of the Pro-Am class goes the 87 Maka ASP Mercedes, one of a quartet, and that's Jules Gounon. So a good bloodline there. The first person to break into the top 10 for quite some while. The improvements are coming outside the top 10, but he's broken in 1 minute 25.361. His next target is that 19 Lamborghini that we had been looking at. This is the sister car, the 63 Lamborghini, third fastest at the moment. Christian Engelhardt at the wheel. As you can see, the clock has nearly ticked down to nothing at the end of 1 hour of free practice. We have another 1 hour coming up, starting, I believe, at 12:55. Yes, indeed, 12:55. And then qualifying this afternoon. at 4:15. So these drivers, every lap of the circuit, very, very valuable as they get to know the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit.
Marcus Winkelhock, number 2, into the top 10 for the first time so far this Saturday morning at Brands Hatch. So they've got a 125.3, but that's 1 second slower than the number 5 car. That's the car by Dries van Thor and Marcel Faster. I put that down not to the differences in driving. I put it down to just what tyre, who had the freshest set of tyres, and I would say that the number 5 Audi clearly was on a fresher set of tyres than the number 2 was, because there ain't any way I can assure you Marcus Winkelhock. Oh, and again, you push your luck doing that. You can also see the bottom of the car, probably the floor of the 63 Lamborghini and Christian Engelhardt bottomed out, and you flirt with the exit of the Curbing and Sterling's at your peril.
Well, he could improve. His heart will really have taken a beating there. Past the checkered flag, doesn't improve, but not far off his best pace. A lot of the teams have been happy with that 1 minute 25.1 second lap. But Christian Engelhardt, the TV directors love you for that. That's one of those ones for the highlights package, and that is really, really pushing on. I think we might see some more of that. There is the checkered flag. The final handful of cars just coming now through clearways onto the start-finish straight. See the checkered flag. They then go behind the paddock along bottom straight or Cooper Straight and get waved in effectively almost to rejoin. Just they turn right instead of left at Surtees, so the short way back to the paddock, and it's a very, very crowded pit lane indeed. 34 cars. We know the number 11 Kessel Racing Ferrari is still being repaired, but just to run down, the number 5 Audi, top of the charts, time of 1 minute 24.357 seconds set by Dries van Thor. Early on, he then lowered the mark from his previous best, so he's had a series of quick laps. Second at the end, the Mercedes troops came on strong. HTP Motorsport Mercedes, Fabian Schiller at the wheel at the end, but the time set by his teammate Jules Simkowiak, and Lamborghini strong, very strong indeed in the endurance round at Monza, looking strong again now. Third fastest, Christian Engelhardt, and a very strong pairing there with Mirko Bortolotti. David Fuminelli brought on board the number 42 Stracker Motorsports McLaren this weekend to partner Lewis Williamson. And there are is the results graphic. Look, Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini, McLaren, Audi, Mercedes, BMW. What a mix of cars in there. And as you can see, 0.4 of a second was the gap, but that was an incredible lap by Dries van Thor. We think new tyres could have been involved. Anyone under 1 minute 25 was really shining, so the top 3. And what a mix. And pointing out that Beaubelic Gounon, very strong run for them. 1 second away in 10th. We reckon when we get to qualifying, John, that'll be 20 cars. Probably the top 2 timing pages covered by that second between first and 1 second away from pole. And looking for some further down. Look at that run. 17th, 18th and 19th for 3 of the Stracker Racing runners. We saw them up near the top early on, but certainly the pick of the McLaren so far this weekend has been the 42 crew. We saw them right up at the top end. 1.5 seconds down to 24th position shows how competitive it really is. Don't forget, this session was interrupted by a red flag. We lost 15 to 20 minutes of running time that we won't get back, but it's going to get tighter and tighter. And at the end, 33 cars set a time at the conclusion. Right, young stars, we talked about them beforehand. Caitlin Wood, Marco Hellis, Kangas learning their craft. 4 and a bit seconds down. That will come down when they get towards qualifying. Track was dry, the sun was out, it's now started to go away. Still very windy at Brands Hatch, but it was a good, strong opening session. And as far as we can tell, John, only the one spin that we saw, that led to the Kessel Racing Ferrari being off at the side of the circuit. But all good, clean racing experience. Now let's take a look at the highlights. First chance to see the cars on the wonderful Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch. That's Westfield Corner. And this famous stretch of circuit through Stirling's and back into the Grand Prix Bowl. But very early on, about 12 minutes in, we had the Kessel Racing Ferrari taking a little glance against the barriers. And that brought out the red flag. But once we went out again, the Graham Hill Bend was the corner that caught out most of the drivers. We saw them running out over the curbing. 2 wheels on the track, as John Watson explained, good. 4 wheels not on the track, not good at all. Wonderful intermart rivalry. Ferrari, Lamborghini, a great lump of rubber flying off there. BMW came good towards the end, worked their way towards the front. Bentley, not quite in the hunt yet this weekend. They've had an up and down season so far, but early days yet. Riding on board there with Vincent Abril around through Druids, down the hill. And there's the Marco Hedis Cangas, Caitlin Wood, Lamborghini. That ended up slowest of all, but they gained lots of experience. Wonderful stretch of tarmac. Audi on top at the moment. Let's see what happens next.